So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Welcome back to Human Resources for the People. It's a human capital revolution. Today, we're going to cover a salary requirement and a cover letter out of Texas and a damaged company vehicle out of DC. And then finally, out of Ohio, interviews after lodging a OSHA complaint. This is part of a long series that I've done for a while, answering Ask HR Reddit questions. It's one of those things that a lot of times I see pretty bad takes on the subreddit on Ask HR, and so I wanted to weigh in here. So starting out with a question about the salary requirement in a cover letter. The person says they have a job they'd like to apply, but the salary range is low. And then the cover letter requires that you include your salary requirement. So the question is it bad to apply for a job and include a higher salary requirement? Is it common for organizations to turn down an application for this? Yeah, absolutely. I think that the problem that this person will face most likely is that the organization is not going to want to waste time reviewing and then contacting someone if it's simply out of the range. Now, if the range is a little bit of a lie, right? So there is a world where the range isn't quite accurate depending on the size of the company, and that could mean that it wouldn't be that big of a turn down. But I think that's a big risk, right? It's a big risk to assume that the range is actually not the range. And 5 to 8K is significantly more. I would think that if there was a question around 1K or something like that, that wouldn't be a big deal. But yeah, common organization, because it's not turning down the application. That would be simple and easy. It's turning down the entire process that application represents, right? So it means that you turn down the constant contacts by the recruiter, the processing, the interviews, and the idea is that eventually, you get to the final step, and it's not an amount that you would accept. And so, I mean, I would any job that really requires a cover letter, I probably wouldn't be that interested in anyway. Cover letters are incredibly outdated, and it's just a little bit silly. But regardless, if that is what you're interested in, yes, an organization would turn down an application for that. Next is damaged company vehicle out of DC. And the question is, will I be fired from my job if I accidentally cause damage worth $4,000 to the company vehicle by hitting it against an object? Has anyone been through a similar situation, and what was the outcome? So $4,000 is actually kind of low for most of these vehicles. I'd be curious what they actually did. The first answer is to tell your employer immediately. I think that it could be a lot worse if it's delayed, right? The response could be a lot worse if you're not truthful. So I would, get it on top of it, because no matter what, I imagine you're going to face some consequences, but what that looks like, it depends. I used to work for an employer a while back that there was a certain money limit with which this money limit was below. And it was a public money limit, right? It was $5,000, I think. Anyway, in that scenario, you actually, so if you were less than that amount, then you would get 40 hours suspension, 4 days. Or if it was more than that, then you were terminated. So in that scenario, this would result in a termination, or would not result in a termination, but a 40-hour suspension. Every business is different, and it really depends on your company culture and what the expectations are. So don't let that information scare you. I would say in most companies that I worked, a true accident, $4,000 is really not all that much, to be honest. And, you might get some sort of warning, but I doubt that it would result in termination. There's people that destroy factory equipment that is considerably more expensive than that, and don't get anything more than a slap on the wrist, and rightfully so, right? The last one's out of Ohio, and the question is about interviews after fired for lodging an OSHA complaint. If a person was fired due to reporting a health and safety violation to management, how should that person talk about this firing in job interviews soon after so as not to reduce chances of getting hired, that is? This is a very solid question. I personally, I guess it depends on your position and what you're actually applying for. If someone came to me and instead of saying that they went to OSHA, they said something like, I saw this very specific violation, I reported it, and I was terminated thereafter, I would probably instantly have a lot more respect from a hiring manager perspective for that person because safety is very critical in any industrial capacity. So if you're working in an industrial, if that's an interview tip, if you're applying for an industrial job and you say you put safety first when you're giving your interview answers, you're going to get pretty far in the interview process, in my opinion and in my experience. So that I think that if you articulate that you what specifically you saw, and assuming that this health and safety violation is serious and not ticky tacky, then I think that that's actually a decent way to describe it and let them know that you reported it up your chain, and as a result, you were terminated. I think that that could actually be a very honest way to go forward. But if you didn't feel comfortable in that, simply a simple, we had different views on safety, and as a result, I had to go my own path. And I think that that's a fair way to say it too, if you feel uncomfortable with the pure truth. As a person who has a lot of experience in industrial, pure truth on safety would be pretty valuable, in my opinion. So that's it. I think we had an interesting selection of HR questions today. Please let me know what you think in the comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye, guys.